All right. So what were you saying about doming?
Yeah, I was just saying that like domination is all about transformation. It's all about healing. So like so you made a joke. You were like, oh, you're not just a dom anymore. You're a healer, and it's like, oh, I mean, to me, it's the same thing, right? It's
Definitely. You
sure.
are not just a dom anymore. You are a healer, and this is a very, very heavy episode of your kinky friends, but a positive one. This is an episode about healing. Um, please welcome from Los Angeles. You may know him from Sanctuary LAX, but also Mindfuckery.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about mindfuckery, but this we're going to talk about healing. Please, send your flowers. I mean, give this man your flowers. Say, it's like just give all the respect you can, and listen. And you know what? Look, we're all going through some things. We're all going through trauma, and some of us are going through grief, but some of us are just we're going through anxiety. And people like Ezra Algos can help. Please welcome Sir Ezra Algos. Hi, how are you? Say hi.
I'm doing great. Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for. I know it's a challenging time. We'll get into it, but I really appreciate your having me.
So, Ezra, what's inspiring you these days?
Poetry. You know,
Nice.
I recently wrote a book with my mother. My mother is a fine arts painter, and at some point she really inspired my own like transformative journey. I sort of had this impression that you like have the baggage that you have and like that's it, but that's not it. Like you can unpack it, you can reprocess it, you can repackage it, and sort of have different baggage or less baggage if you do the work, right? And so I saw her do it, and then also got sort of set on the same pathway. And it's interesting. It's intergenerational kind of trauma. So there's personal trauma, but there's also this like stuff that's passed down, and we're both processing it. And I realized that she was doing that in her paintings, and I said, well, why don't we set up the paintings in a way that goes through the process of grief and trauma recovery, and I'll match it with poetry. And so over the last 2 years, we've been working on this, which is the path through a book of paintings and poetry on the subject of trauma. And my mother's name is Judith Brassard Brown, and my given name is Ezra Michael Pryor. So I'm authoring it under my given name because it's not especially kinky, you know.
Mm,
I don't think I can pull the kink out of everything,
yeah.
but it's really it's serendipitous because I reached out to you about getting on the show and talking about the book, and the book again is about trauma and grief. It's the like Kubler Ross model for grief and recovery is the subjects is the chapters of the book, right? And you mentioned that you're going through a grieving period. This pretty much just started for you right now.
Yes. I just found out about 2 hours ago that Miss Melissa, the editor in my books, the person who did the artwork for the books, one of the co-founders of Your Kinky Friends, has passed away this morning from cancer. Um, she was in hospice for a while. I all I want to say is that she has been essential to Your Kinky Friends and the spirit, the whimsical spirit of art and expression, not just sexual expression, but artistic expression. So I'm going through grief, and it's just hitting now. Right? One thing that I love about what you're doing is using art to you take your broken heart and make it into art, as Carrie Fisher said. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
it's beautiful that you and your mother got together to do this, to be not only artistic. So what I'm curious about is did the paintings come first and then the poetry,
For
or did
sure.
you go back and
Yeah.
forth?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the paintings came first. The paintings were they none of the paintings in the book were made for the book, right? my mother's been painting for the last 50 years, and so she had this tremendous body of work, and at different stages in her life, she's in that different stage of grieving and recovery from trauma. And so it was really interesting. There's some like really old stuff, some really new stuff, some not so new stuff, but it was in a lot of ways, I don't think my mother could conceptualize the work and was just kind of like, here's my paintings, do what you're going to do. And so I put the thing together, and then she became much more involved, right? Once it sort of had a skeleton, she could maybe comment on things, but at the very beginning, I don't think she could see it. I don't think she could visualize it. So definitely, I mean, all the poetry I wrote specifically for the book, with exception to
And
one
the
that just like
poetry that
hit
you
me.
the poetry that you wrote for the book, like you said, there's like trauma and grief and stuff like that. If you don't mind me asking, without being too specific, but also not being too esoteric about it, what type of trauma and grief do you address?
Sure. I mean, so it's kind of generic. I mean, it's interesting because there are specific experiences in grief that are kind of universal, and so there's like these different phases that I try to embody, but it's not like about my trauma. Like my trauma is what brings me into that space so that I can speak to it and like share that experience with people. But it's not as if the book is written to somebody who hurt me in particular, right? I think some of the poems could serve as letters to family members, and I'll let you guys try to figure that one out. But in
That
general,
is the fun of writing a book.
right? It's a mystery. But like, yeah. So the chapters are shock and denial, pain and guilt, anger and bargaining, depression, reconstruction and working through, and then finally hope and acceptance. And so it was really liberating to take some of these emotions that feel taboo, like you're not supposed to be angry or you're not supposed to be depressed. And it gave me an excuse to really sit in it. It gave me an opportunity to really go, okay, I'm feeling depressed now. It's time to like juice this fucking lemon and make some lemonade. So, which was really
Ah,
liberating,
yes,
and validating. And I think if this book could do anything for people, it's to give them an opportunity to feel not alone, right? I mean, especially these like nastier feelings, we're told to like hide with them. We're not supposed to share them, right? And that's part of the process, right? I
yeah,
mean, you can you can love Mistress Melissa all you want, and then there might be some part of you that's angry, and it doesn't cancel it out, and it doesn't do them an injustice, and hiding from those feelings is only going to make it harder. It's like
that
bottling up, the medicine may not taste very good, but if you bottle it up and let it ferment and let it spoil, it's just going to be worse, so take it, drink it in, and let it be. And it was really healing. And I'll say it's really interesting too that it sort of gave my my mother and I a stage to get back into some of those injuries, get back into those interpersonal things, because I don't think she traumatized me, but I think she was a witness, and I think there was ways maybe she could have protected me, but she wasn't able to. And I love her deeply, and I like her. I'm really lucky to have a friend in my mother as well. But there
does your
were some.
mom
Go ahead.
does your mom know about your lifestyle?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm an open book. I don't. It's really funny. My mother had a million questions. So it was like there was a time when I came out as a sadomasochist, and my mother had a million questions and was kind of like, "Tell me, wait, don't tell me. Tell me, wait, don't tell me." And my father just said, "That makes sense," and like didn't have any questions. And I was like, I feel like I should be insulted by that. I don't know, but yeah. And I think for him it was really complicated because he didn't think about like sadomasochist in the modern context of like consensual and ethical and mindful and thoughtful. It was just like somebody who wanted others to be in pain, right?
Yeah.
Which sort of reminded him of his father. So that's sort of indicative of that intergenerational, because he was a fucking bastard. He used to actually like, you know, my uncles and aunts would get like beaten by him, and he would take pleasure in it. So like that's his kind of sadomasochism. It's not consensual. It was abuse. So and then that sort of echoed into my life. Not that he beat me, but it affected him deeply in ways that he wasn't able to process, and so I'm kind of processing those things, right?
Now, one thing I think everybody goes to therapy these days, right? One I was in a therapy session with one of a doctor a long time ago, and I was talking about the kink community, and she was talking about she made a comment which I was kind of offended by. She's saying that most of the people in the kink community are dealing with trauma, or um, so basically, it made it kind of feel in her tone and her delivery, kind of made it feel like everybody in the kink community is broken. And she even used the word broken. Yeah, she even said, she goes, everyone, like you have to be aware because everyone in the community is broken. They're like,
Mm.
broken people. Now, how do you feel about that? And also, how can have you used that in your art?
Yeah, so it's interesting because that harkens to like purity culture, right? To sort of describe people as either broken or not broken, right?
Yeah,
Like we're all complex. We're all like, none of us is unmarked by our experiences, right? And some of us are more marked by our experiences, and some of us can go through the same experience. Like you see this with siblings all the time, where one sibling is traumatized and the other sibling is not traumatized, or does not appear to be traumatized, right? But I think there's some truth to it also, that kink gives us an opportunity to take these really hard experiences and reprocess them. Kink can be really healing, and if you're not in need of healing, then there's some value that kink has that just doesn't isn't valuable to you, right? If you don't need healing, then there's some part of kink that just is never going to be valuable to you, right?
yes,
So
it
so
really
of course,
depends.
yeah, it's going to attract people who are in the process of healing.
I
But
think a
I
big thing
yeah.
that you tapped on is the connection, is the loneliness aspect. It can be very lonely for a kinky person out there.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons I'm doing this is to help people connect with each other. I'm going to connect with everybody, myself. So, oh, Sunshine says, yes, kink is so therapeutic.
Well, okay. Let me illustrate the absurdity of the stigma, right? So,
Okay, please.
yeah. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but like spicy food, spice is it may be associated with flavors, but spice is actually not a flavor. It's a sensation. It's pain, right? Capsaicin causes pain in the digestive system, and some people really like it, and there's a cultural foundation for it. Some cultures enjoy spicy food more than other cultures. Some people get like pressured into liking spicy food and exposed to it more, and then end up liking it more. How silly would it be if I was to be like, Nick, I'm so sorry that you feel like you have to make all your food spicy. Like, why can't you just enjoy sweet and salty foods? Like, I'm sorry you're so broken that you need spice in your food. Like, how fucking silly is that?
Yeah,
Right? Like,
I just
we all have different
like
tastes.
flavor.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So I
it's
want I
about
want my
flavor.
sex to hurt a little bit. So what? As long as I
Yes.
get people that are enjoying it as well, I'm not pressuring anybody to enjoy it that way. That doesn't sound like fun to me, right?
Yeah. I like that. I like my sex to hurt a little bit. So what?
Yeah. I like my food spicy. I like my sex spicy. Have you ever
Yeah.
like had oral sex with hot sauce?
Yes.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck
Fuck
yeah.
yeah.
Fuck yeah.
I'm sorry. I like my tacos with hot sauce.
Yes, I like my tacos with hot sauce too. We need spice in our life and in our tacos.
And can I
So
just say, if anybody's listening and they want to try that, start really low. Start really low with the hot sauce, okay?
yes,
It's
that's
easy to
true.
overdo it.
All right, so as people in the kink community, right? What are some examples that you could find that people found healing through the kink community?
Oh,
A lot of
sure,
like my
yeah.
exes, for example, a lot of my exes, they're
Mm-hmm.
like, "You're in the kink community, but I don't want to beat anybody, and I don't want to get beaten." They're
That's
like, "Well,
you
you
don't
don't
have
know
to do
anything
that.
about it, you know."
Yeah. Well,
But
it's not
how can we help? How
sure.
especially with healing, grief, trauma?
Well, first, I want to sort of illustrate the variety of experiences that are in the BDSM community, right? It's not just the S&M community. It's not the sadomasochism community. It's not the bondage community. It's not the dominance and submission community. It's all of those things. And it's also, even beyond that, it's all of these like really niche sexualities like, oh, I only get off if I lick armpits. Great, come on in. You're welcome, okay? Come be part of the fold. But so there are sensualists. There are people who are. I mean, I probably don't need to tell your audience because you're everybody's kinky here, but certainly it doesn't have to be about pain. It doesn't have to be about any particular type of kink. You can negotiate anything you want. Nobody's going to pressure you into it. And now I'm dying because what was the question?
I was
What's
like,
the question?
all right, basically, we could switch it into. I'm seeing people like yourself, people like Liliane Laurent,
Mm-hmm.
and just other people who are creating art,
Oh, how can you
who have
heal with
been
it? How can you
what?
heal with kink?
Yes,
Because that was the question.
and what are some other kinky people that you know who are doing stuff like you're doing that you want to kind of celebrate as well?
Well, I mean, I always gravitate towards people who prefer transformative experiences in their kink, right? And so I, so everybody I know is using kink for transformative purposes. Like I don't know anybody who's just like I like this and it don't know what it means and I don't think about it. I mean, and that's perfectly valid, but I don't but that's just not how I go about it, and that's not really how my friends go about it, right? But to answer the question of like how can kink be transformative, I can tell you that I've had some really mean things said to me when I was a really young child, and so those mean things like rattle around in my brain, and then when I get a chance to like retool them to be like nasty and mean in a sexual context with a consenting partner that like understands that I value them and I care for them and I I'm concerned for their safety. It's so empowering to be able to sort of take that thing that has been cutting me on the inside and turn it around and use it cuttingly on the outside, but in a fun way, in a sexy way, in an empowering way. And then when I hear it in my own head in a way that might have cut me before, it just doesn't have the same sting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's like
Yeah,
taking it back almost. But that like,
exactly.
and you
Yeah.
know how my mind wanders, right? So you're talking about saying mean things, in a consensual way. I say some things in the bedroom that I really don't mean, and it's role play,
Yeah.
right? They know that, and they want me to say it. I don't even want to say it sometimes. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So, what is it? Just is there an example of something really mean that you said that you didn't necessarily mean it,
Oh,
or you
sure.
thought it was just really
Yeah.
mean?
No, no, the thing I always want to say is you're fucking worthless. Like it's a good thing you can, please me the way that you do because that's the only thing that you have that's valuable, that makes you a valuable human being. And that's fucking terrible. That's an awful thing to say. The only
Yeah,
way that you're useful is the way that you're useful to me. Ugh, that's fucking diabolical.
yeah, that's totally
But it's
right.
so
Yeah,
hot. It's so hot.
yeah. Why do you think that? Okay, that's another question. You're an intelligent person. I know you and I. We both. like we really
Ugh,
philosophize about this stuff at the kick. So why do you think we like, or not necessarily we, but why do you think people like or get just turned on by the most horrible things, by being
I don't
called the
know.
most horrible things, or being
You know, I often found that the question of why do I like this is a dangerous question. And I think it's valuable for people, but I think a lot of times what people will do is they'll sort of say, if I could figure out why, then I'll decide whether I accept it or not. And that's not my job. My job is to help bring people into acceptance. And I think if the question why is important to you now, it will be important to you after you accept yourself also. And so let's first come into a space of self acceptance and self love. And then if you want to come back to why, then you need to talk to a philosopher or somebody else. But that's not my place in the world. The question why is not, I somebody gave me the same thing of like, oh, it's your job to figure out why. And I came back to them and I was like, if I was a race car driver and I got really good and now I'm teaching people to drive fast in race cars, do you need me as the race car driving instructor to be the one that says, why do you want to drive fast in the car? No, that's not my job. My job is to help you drive fast in the car, do so as safely as possible with the least possible risk in a way that's going to maybe get you some medals. That's it. That's my job.
I want to talk about poetry. I love poetry.
Yeah.
Seriously, I did a poetry reading at the Bowery Art Collective. Shout out to Eogene and Ariana Stooney at the Bowery Art Collective. I did a poem about Miss Melissa actually when she was dying in the
Mm-hmm.
hospital. Um, I did a poem about her, while how she hated poetry, and I wrote a poem about her how she hates poetry while she was
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking. So do you use, as someone who loves poetry, would you say you're a romantic?
Yeah. Forever. I
I
was a
know. I
romantic.
can tell.
Yeah.
I can tell.
Yeah.
I know what I see. So how do you use poetry? Because I notice this a lot in the BDSM community. We love poetry. We love poets. Sometimes we love poets more than the poetry itself. But do you use ever poetry in your kinky life?
I think that my sexting has become poetry. I think that there's a lot of times when I'm like texting with somebody in a way where like I really know that I'm spinning them up and I'm getting them really hot, and it's like it's this really bizarre form of poetry with an audience of one, but it's like somehow more pure that way.
Oh yeah. So okay, I like the sex. I
Yeah.
do.
I
What
wish
are
I could.
some?
I had like a one liner that I can't remember, but it
So,
was
but we
really
could do
hot.
this. What are some things you should never do
With what? With poetry or in
with
kink?
text or poetry? That's even better.
What is it? Something you should never do in poetry is steal work. There
Yeah.
you go.
Cemetery
Yeah, just do
gates.
your own stuff. Use somebody else's poetry if you feel like it feels really true to how you feel. Like say it, but also put their name down because
Yeah, quote it.
there are so few crumbs in poetry. Like fucking give them out when they're due. But
Yeah, yeah.
but
And we live
also
in
like
sample culture. Sample it. And I always think of Morrissey or the Smiths, Cemetery
yeah.
Gates. If you
Well, and
write the
then
pose or poetry, the words you use should be your own. Don't plagiarize or take on loan, because there's always someone somewhere with a big nose who knows who'll trip you up and laugh when you fall.
there you go.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think also imitation is really accessible. Like, there's nothing wrong with like looking at a poem and be like, "This is really cool. Let me do something that's an imitation of this," and that's totally fair game all the time, forever. So, yeah,
Abby Hart. Oh, she's gonna be back soon. Things that we experience in our formative years, be good or bad, surface in adulthood as a fetish or kink. Now let's talk about that. Thank you, Abby, for talking about that. So you're, I talked to you a couple times, and I mean, you said you're like, I'm a nasty boy. I'm a nasty
yeah.
guy. So with Abby saying this, things in our formative years surface in adulthood as a kink. So do you find that true with you? Things
Absolutely.
that in
Well, I
your
mean, I think there's some like real solid research about sexual impressioning happens around like 3 or 4 years old. You know, and I don't I'm not an expert in that, but that is what the research suggests is that you know there's just moments that like lay the found that just lay the foundation for our sexy experiences. And then like what is kink and what is fetish is actually a cultural interpretation. Like I mean, you know that like breasts are not reproductive organs. Breasts are not sexual organs on their own. They are sexualized. So if you like breasts, that's a fetish. But it's
Yeah.
not described as a fetish because it's not rare enough. It's not, counterculture. So it's not, so nobody cares. Right.
So when it comes to poetry, who are some of the poets that inspired you?
Oh, Kerouac all the time. Yeah. Kerouac. I feel like I owe a debt to Kerouac. Like he proposed the American haiku, which like dispenses with the syllable restrictions. And, it's just like so liberating, and I think I need to spend like a year doing like at least one haiku a day just to pay homage to him.
Interesting. See,
Yeah,
we got
I think he's
we have a
from
writing.
Massachusetts as well, and I'm from Massachusetts, so I want to go like live in a cabin and write and just live the Kerouac life. I think he was also gay, which is kind of fun
I wouldn't be
because
surprised. I know. I think
it was
didn't
the
James Franco play him, or was
I
that
don't
Ginsberg?
remember.
I don't know. I'm a fan of Allen Ginsberg.
Sure.
Also, I also I was so I was so freshman year of college. I did a thesis on women poets like Emily Dickinson, Sylvia Plath, and Anne Sexton who killed themselves. I was such a goth kid.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. We got some questions. Ask Ezra questions.
Sure.
Okay. What advice would you give to people who are constantly struggling with loneliness?
Yeah, that's tough, and I think I'm in that category. I think that loneliness is something that I always feel, and not like in every moment, but like in every chapter of my life, there's loneliness, and I think it's hard to say this without like it's because this is Buddhism, right? And it's like the two arrows. So there is the pain of the experience, and then there is the pain of not accepting the experience, right? There is the pain of non acceptance. There is the pain of hating the way that you feel. And that you can undo, that you can dispense with. You can't necessarily get rid
Wow.
of the loneliness, right? But you can stop fighting against it. So, I mean, I would encourage people to, when they feel lonely, to actively feel lonely and say, okay, today is my day to feel lonely. Let me make tea for my loneliness. Let me make a bed for my loneliness in case it wants to stay the night. Be a good house guest to your feelings, whatever they are. So that would be my advice there. And I think I mean, loneliness can be like an alarm, right? Where it tells us that we're not connected enough with the people around us, and that we should connect with the people around us. And so, you know, sometimes loneliness can let us know that we actually need better friends or more community or a lover that actually likes us or is nice to us instead of the one that we have, right? And
Yeah.
so, look at loneliness. Is it trying to tell you something? Can you hear it? Can you learn it? And if it's chronic, if you know what it's trying to tell you, then, get comfortable with it, you know?
We have another question for Ask Ezra. What advice would you give to kinky people, especially? And I know a lot of people in the kink community like this. They're always looking for more. They're always looking for myself. I know, I'm always looking over for something new. But
Yeah.
then again, shout out to my friend Luna Dark, where it gets kind of scary. She goes, I get so turned on and I go down these rabbit holes. She goes, the next thing you know, I may be hooked up to a car battery. You like, you know what I mean? So, what advice would you give to somebody in the kink community who's really can't be just satiated just by the one thing. Like they've already put panties on, now they want to do something else. They've already
Well,
been whipped, now they want to
congratulations.
do something else. That's
Congratulations.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
you're
way
on
I do.
fire. That's great. Yeah, no, I
I
mean
I
like
yeah,
okay. So no, what
but can
I
it be
will say,
dangerous?
it can be dangerous. Yeah, absolutely. So what I'll say is that there is this, we all know about frenzy, or I suppose I can't assume what we all know, but there is this thing called frenzy that happens when we spend our lives in the closet, and then all of a sudden we realize that there's outside of the closet, and that everybody can. There are places where we can go and find these people and do these things. We want to do them with everybody, but then we tend to not evaluate risk properly in that situation. And so taking a breath, putting up some boundaries for yourself, like I mean, and I'm not gonna judge anybody in frenzy. I would be the worst person to judge someone in frenzy because I was in frenzy for like 2 solid years before I got my shit together. You
No,
know,
I know how you feel. I
I
know exactly how you
literally,
feel.
do you know what I used to say, Nick? I used to say, I'll whip anybody. What the fuck do I care? I'm 4 feet away. You, yeah, no, absolutely. Like, you could come off the street and, like, not have showered for months or whatever. I'll just change my cracker. I don't care. Come on, let's go. I'll torture you. But now I realize that there's, like, an energy exchange and there's a cost to
Yeah.
everything, and that, sometimes playing with people is really dangerous, and certain activities are really dangerous. And you can't count on everybody to have a good sense of the risk of a specific activity. So you should have a good sense of the risk of those activities if you're going to do it.
One thing, one thing I want. You
Like,
make
okay, hold
torture
on.
seem
If you
so
want to do the
fun.
car battery, the car battery is like step 5, right? There's the tens unit, there's the shock knife,
Yeah.
there's the taser, right? Those are all like safer than the car battery. So like
Uh,
if you need to get to the car battery, do it, but like do it far from your heart, and like not if you have a pacemaker. Don't shock your titties with the car battery, okay? It's too close to your electrical device that keeps you alive.
but now, as do you still practice as a dom, as a professional dom?
You know, I don't really practice as a professional dom. I became at some point in my healing process, I became too sensitive to energies,
Okay.
and so I really need to get to know somebody first. I wouldn't take it off the table permanently, but I think that I would absolutely need to have like a 2 or 3 month vetting process for any new professional clients, and that at least who I was interfacing with, that wasn't like the kind of person I was interfacing with. The person I was interfacing with was somebody who wanted something right now, and they didn't really want to think about it. But yeah, to me, it's sort of like the depth requirement for engagements is too great for any experience that would show itself as a professional experience.
Now, one thing I think that you and I have in common that we both go through the kink community as as students. I mean, we are,
Mm-hmm.
like we can teach,
Forever.
we can hold talks, we can, but we're all part of this together. We're all going through this and learning together. So let me ask you this: I've talked to you for years. I've known you for years. Recently, what have you learned recently about yourself?
You really come in with the big questions here. What have I learned recently? My mouth is amazing. Like, I
Really?
mean, it sounds like a brag, but like my hands, like, okay, as a dom, like I know how to use my hands and everything, but I had some like barriers to intimacy with my mouth, if you will, for some years, and when that faded, like I was able to heal. I had one of my early sexual relationships, somebody had like pressured me into oral sex, and so I was like, I was averse to it because it would sort of, I could get re-triggered, and it was really tough. But
Really?
but now that that has faded, the level of intimacy that I can do without taking my pants off is just, I mean, it's more than the intimacy that I knew before with any part of my body combined, right? It's just through the roof. I don't know how to
Okay,
say it
speaking of
besides that. Yeah.
your amazing mouth, what can for us for the people out here watching who are going to do something with their mouth tonight, what can they do? Just give us a little something to.
Yeah, it's not the 80s. You can look up how to do it, okay? There's instruction guides, there's
There
tips,
is the
there's
internet.
tricks. Yeah, there is the internet. Look it up, okay? Put a little work into it and get the hot sauce. I have two
Is it a
questions for
special
you.
kind of hot sauce? Is it Frank?
No, no, it is whatever you like, you know. But okay, but here's my technique, right? With the hot sauce, is like put it on your mouth so you know how hot it is. Don't apply it to your partner. Put it in your mouth first, so you know how hot it is, and then go from there. So, yeah.
Hot sauce, oral sex. I
And I
love
have
it.
two questions for you. I'm not in a
For
rush,
me,
but yeah, but or
okay,
two things to share. I should say two
sure,
things to share before. I don't want to interrupt your flow, but I just want to
no
make sure we don't
problem.
get to the very end.
We have no flow. This is chaos. My show is chaos. It's just,
I'm just
so
trying to
dude,
keep up. I assumed there was a rhythm or a yeah.
what's up?
Well, no, I mean I wanted to like share some pages from the book,
Please.
and then you also, because of your situation right now, you had asked about like what are some like general advice for people who are like in process of grieving, right? So
Yes.
so I have so let me see. So this one I like a lot. This one's anger. This one's in the yeah, the anger and bargaining, and this is Burning Gaze is the name of the poem, and Running Red is the name of the painting, right? And Burning Gaze, I'll read it to you guys real quick. Heat radiates from behind my eyes like a burning red laser. Skin flush, jaw tight, daggers for teeth, razors for words, venom from my lips, burning, etching, contaminating.
Oh God. Know what we should do? We should put
What?
it to music. You
I
got a
know,
great
I'm doing
voice.
that. No, you're so right. You're so right. I'm working on the audiobook and I'm putting it to classical music.
Nice. You could
So
even
you're
put what I want to do, Ezra. I want to make an
yes.
album for BDSM dungeons
First, perfect.
made by people in BDSM dungeons. So
I
in
was
other
gonna
words,
say,
the percussion would be butts, and you know there's ropes, and everybody making it, and all the poetry, all the singing, all the instrumentation is all by people who are your kinky friends. Coming soon.
sure. Yeah.
I want
Okay,
you to be a
here's
part of this, Ezra.
yeah. Here okay, here's one that's depression, and we have to end on a positive note. I think a lot of
Okay.
people read the book and they get stuck in the middle. Um and so this one here, Stuck in the Swamp, is the name of the poem. And then what is it called? The painting is called What Remains Number 6. Okay, so the poem reads, Stuck in the Swamp is the name of the poem, and it reads as such. Knee deep in mud, the going slow, the mist thick. Small, gnarled trees, I can't see the edge, going on in all directions. As I lift one foot, the other sinks. Mud coats my skin like tar. The mud begs to envelop my body, that I might contribute to its mass, its stench. I could stay here forever, in the quiet muck, peaceful in its own way, isolated.
Wonderful.
Um,
Thank you very much,
yeah,
Ezra.
one more.
Sure.
So, Hope and Acceptance is the end of the book, and then I'll show you one more picture after that. So, this is Promise of Bread is the name of the Promise of Bread is the name of the poem, and then this painting is in Volci. So it's an Italian landscape, and the poem reads, Gusts of wind dance upon tips of golden grains, wheat blowing and whispering, the promise of fresh loaves steaming on the dinner table. And then the final picture, because I feel like it's so heavy that people are like, man, is he okay? So here's a picture of me being okay right there. There you go. So that's me, my son, and my mother.
Wow, that's beautiful. It really is beautiful on how things come together, especially with your mother. I wrote the coolest way to kill yourself. We're gonna go into it. So the love of my life died. Her name was Lynn, and I was devastated. I was absolutely devastated. It's around Hurricane Sandy, around
Mm-hmm.
2012, and that's when I met Miss Melissa. And because I was dealing with the grief of Lynn, I wrote a book. I wrote the book, "The Coolest Way to Kill Yourself." No one kills himself in a book. It's a metaphor. And then throughout the years, I made these two. So I made two more books. I made Your Kinky Friends, another one called Chip Black Nail Polish. But the thing that I thought was beautiful, which I think resonates in your book too, was on how people came together. So when I wrote The Coolest Way to Kill Yourself, I contacted, because it's a true story, I contacted like my ex-girlfriends to
Mm-hmm.
get their sides of the story again and to kind of make it okay to make, and everyone
Yeah.
I talked to in the book, like Tom Sharpling from the Best Show, I got the permission, you know. And then an ex-lover of mine wrote one of the foreheads, and then Miss Melissa wrote the foreword and did the cover and stuff like that. So having everybody come together for art, that is exceptionally beautiful, and that's what you just did, Ezra, which is
Mm-hmm.
magnificent. And so I applaud you. Please, everyone, go out there and support Ezra
Yeah.
Algos.
The
Buy.
in Currently it's not available as an audiobook, but I'm working on it. It is available as an ebook or as a paperback. So it's in, and check it out on Amazon. The
And
Path
that's
Book.
not your only book that you would like to promote, is
No,
it?
that's true. Yeah, because I was on the show before for this one, the Mind Fucking Mindfully, a guide to mental manipulation for BDSM and sadomasochism, and yeah, and that's doing great. I mean, we sold more than 2,000 copies in the last 3 years.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm
Ah,
really
it's
happy.
so good to see a kinky person be creative. It's fucking
Yeah,
awesome.
no, I
And
knew I
now,
made it when Jay Wiseman called me.
nice. Oh,
So
we got to have this question. Stan Vladimir asks, if you could have any superpower, what would it be, and how would you use it in your kink life?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, that it definitely I would use it in my kink life, right? I always fantasize about having a girlfriend with super healing powers for reasons that are perhaps too gruesome to come on the show. But
Wait, no, we're talking about this. Hold on.
I can't remember.
Wait,
There
so
was a
you mean like you
show.
could like cut your arm off and then grow one back if she?
Sure, sure, yeah, just like that. Yeah, you could
So what is
heal.
the most gruesome thing you're thinking of?
Yeah, I don't even want to get into it because it's just, I
Oh,
know, yeah.
give us
But
a hint.
I mean, you got to use your imagination. Yeah, like, cause, uh,
Does it deal with disembowelment,
no. Well, I mean, I don't mean to
insanguination?
say it that way. I'm just gonna not. I'm just gonna not. Um, no, I think, honestly, I think like infinite wisdom would be my superpower, and it sounds kind of boring, but like, think about when you like know your lover really, really well, right? Like that's the hottest. Is like when you know
Yes.
exactly who they are. Yes, Wolverine powers. Yes, but yeah, when you know your partner like perfectly well, and it's just like perfect rhythm and like perfect knowledge of what they're interested in. And so if I think if I had like infinite wisdom, then I would be like the world's best lover, and they'd be fucking lining up. So
Yeah, I just. But having that connection with a lover, it feels like a superpower,
yeah,
doesn't it? It's because like
it does.
everyone else in the world does not have that power that
Yeah,
you
you're like
two
it's like you're
have.
psychic almost, right? Like you
Yeah.
can communicate with your bodies. But like the mind fucking class is a whole lot of fun to do, but I really need a demo bottom that I know. if it's a stranger, if somebody like volunteers to demo bottom and I've never played with them before, I mean, it's just like shots in the dark, you know? Like
Yeah.
I don't know what messes with them. I don't know what's fucked up that they really like and would be embarrassing and they'd be aroused by the embarrassment of sharing that. Like that's super hot, but I can't do that with a stranger. So,
Have
knowledge.
you
Yeah.
has your mind fuckery ever gone really wrong?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Please tell.
Well, it was really before I was studying and I would like degrade my partner, but I didn't like unpack it. I didn't like there's this thing that's really essential in mind fucking and you have to unfuck the mind, right? Like you're not a magician. You don't get to like say like ta-da and then leave the room and everybody wonders how it happened. You have to show how it happened and you have to unpack it and you have to undo it. And so like I used body shaming as in a kinky way, but my partner like didn't think that I was playing. They thought that I really like didn't like their body. And so like that I did harm and I did my best to unpack it when I like learned that how much harm I was doing, but you know, sometimes it's like trying to stuff the feathers back in the pillow, like you can't get them all. So,
When it comes to body shaming, how do you keep that? I know it's role play, 100% role play, and it's consensual. But
how do you keep it
how do you
ethical?
keep it like you know? It's like you're fucking someone and like you're my fucking dirty whore, but you're not really a whore. You're not really dirty
Yeah, yeah.
either.
Well, no, okay. It's a discrete end period, right? So first it's talking about it ahead of time, right? Then it's a discrete start time and a discrete end time, right? It's a scene. A scene ends, and so at the end of the scene, you need to unpack. How did it feel to, for me to tell you that your tits are like a flat tire? How did it feel for me to tell you that, your pussy looks like a Saint Bernard's mouth? Like, you have to have those conversations, and if that person goes, it really hurt when you said that, and it doesn't make me feel sexy, and I don't feel like I can get rid of
Yeah.
it, then you have some work to do to unpack it and to never go there again because it wasn't good, right? And I think it's unreasonable to expect, there to be no mistakes ever, but you have to be prepared to deal with mistakes as part of that process. If we're doing knife play and I cut you, I need to be prepared to bandage you back up, right? So if we're doing mind fucking and I fuck you up, then I have to be prepared to unpack that with you. And nobody's expected to be a therapist, but yeah, aftercare, exactly. Nobody's expected to be a therapist, but you can be a processing partner for that person. And I think you really shouldn't do anything more fucked up than you're willing to help unpack, right?
Can you unfuck someone's mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah, so you reveal the secrets, you talk about what just happened, you step out of that role play, and you reestablish who the person is, right? So if, like I said, I'm saying like, oh, your tits are like a flat tire, I'm gonna say, you really, I really do enjoy your tits, and I want to know that I think they're really beautiful, and there's something about it that like makes me feel good to put you down, but really I think you're wonderful, and as long as you're okay with that, we can do that again. But I want to check in, right? That's unfucking the mind.
honey, I love your flat tire tits.
Yeah, or if like, hey, we're gonna do some name calling. What do these feel like to you? And then go through
Yeah.
the name calling. That's
Do you have
the
a
best thing.
specific name? Like, yeah, because some people get silly with it. Some people get real serious. Like, for example, dingbat. What's your opinion of the word
Oh, I
dingbat?
love like fuck toy. I love
Fuck
like,
toy?
yeah, yeah, like your purpose is to be my sexual object. Yeah, I love that. That's hot.
Fuck toy. Yeah. Yeah. No, I've been called a fuck toy before. You
Objectification, yeah.
know.
Well, and I think that there's like a subtlety too that like a lot of people don't often realize, and that use like objectification is not necessarily degrading, right?
hmm
And it can be ennobling, which is the opposite of degrading, right? So you can be the best fuck toy in the world or the worst fuck toy in the world, and those are totally different experiences,
Yeah.
right?
Without a doubt. So you got mind fuckery. You have your new book.
Hmm.
What's next for Sir
I
Ezra?
have three books in the works. This is like an addiction. Um, there's one book that I'm not sure I should talk about them, but there are two books I'm writing in cooperation with two other Kingsters of note, and I'm gonna keep y'all in suspense for that one. And then I'm also writing a book which is like an instruction manual for how to do this radical sexual acceptance coaching methodology that I developed. So I'm an intimacy coach, I'm a life coach, and I developed a method that specifically addresses challenges that people who are having challenges with their sexuality and gender. They could be for sexuality alone, it could be for gender alone, but pretty much anybody LGBTQIA plus could potentially use this as a method. And there's a research project, a clinical sexology research project called the Radical Sexual Acceptance Research Project that I have been working on for almost 2 years now. And so the first thing that's going to come out is the workbook, and because I don't quite have enough data to talk about the results. The initial data is like really promising, and I'm really excited to say that Karis is partnering with me now, and that is I have to look it up so I don't mess up their acronym, but they have an institutional review board which is going to be really helpful at making sure that that yeah, that's not it. It's not going to come up. The But anyway, so that's really exciting because they have resources. They have community resources. Here we go. Carisresearch.org. And that is, I hate when the acronym isn't right up front because I never can remember the acronym. But here we go. Let's see if I can find it. No.
You definitely have to
Community,
come.
here it is. I'm sorry. The
Right.
Community Academic Consortium for Research on Alternative Sexualities. So, so that's really exciting. And anybody who, I'm still taking applicants for the research project as well. And that is tinyurl.com/startrsa.
Wonderful. And I'm going to include all the links. And please check out the other interviews with Sir Ezra. We do a whole episode just on his book, Mindfuckery. We do of the research project. On the last episode, we did
Mm-hmm.
that. This is about this book, and I hope you'll be back.
Okay, and the
Please.
one thing you asked me to get you some advice on how to deal with grieving. So let me give
Yes,
you that to you, right? Because
please.
sometimes what happens is initially there's like some numbness, and so it can maybe the intensity of feelings are still in front of you, and so first and most importantly, I think, is to give yourself permission to have strong intensity feelings and to have complex feelings, right? Because they're not, life is not a cartoon, it's not simple, it's not a Disney movie. Sometimes it's weird, sometimes it's wacky, sometimes it's complex, sometimes it's mixed. So give yourself permission to feel, right? I'd also say make sure that you're taking care of yourself during these hard times. And if you're not able to like address your own needs, then enlist people in your network to check in with you and make sure you're eating and drinking and wanting, and getting sleep and bathing and all of that, because grief can be really overwhelming. I would also say that like there's grief is best shared, right? So, I mean, you're doing a great job already sharing it with your network here. You called me before today and said, "Hey, can we talk about it? Can we have this conversation?" Great job. Bring people in, get help. If you need professional help, take it. But if you can lean on your friends, then that's good too. And then lastly, I would say avoid sudden life changes in the middle of grief, because it's a really strong feeling and you could end up, trying to get some permanent change to a temporary feeling, right?
Wise words. Thank you, Ezra. We have a question. We're wrapping things up, but this is a more generic question because you don't know the details. Michael Brzezinski says, I had some tough times in my late 20s for so last year and the year before, more than ever before. What advice would you give me to heal and move forward? So I guess it's just a generic question for everybody out there. What well, these are some tough times everyone's living in. What advice would
Hmm.
you give to anybody listening to heal and move?
Yeah, no, I mean, that is a tough question. It's a life's work, right? But I think uh, try to be open to feelings. Try to be open to feeling them actively. If you find that you are avoiding feelings, use that as like useful information and say, okay, what am I trying not to feel? How is that impacting my life? What is, how does it feel to admit that? Seek support. Support is super valuable. Friends, family, support groups, support networks, professionals. I mean, therapy is so good. I can't recommend EMDR therapy enough. It really helped me get past like complex PTSD. So yeah, that's what I would say is feel the feelings. And lastly, I would say, I used to think of grief as like a pie that I could eat enough of and it would be gone. And I understand now that that is not true. That grief is like a well, and you can't drink it dry.
Yes.
So drink of it when you feel compelled to, but drink your fill and then walk away when you're done. Don't feel like you need to, like if you feel compelled to feel grief, you don't have to spend the whole day feeling grief. You can just kind of feel it and let it happen. And then when you feel like it's time to move on, move on. Don't
Yeah.
you don't
It's something that lingers. It's always there. It's never gonna go away. You're always gonna miss them. You're always gonna have anger and love. Sometimes, you know, every emotion you could think of.
mm.
That being said, how can we get in touch with you? How can we ask Ezra? How can we listen to your wonderful voice? How can we support your art, your books, everything?
Yeah, so again, both books are on Amazon. The Mindfucking book is an audiobook and I do read it. So and the Path Through is coming soon, hopefully by March, early March. And my podcast is the Ask Ezra podcast. It's available everywhere. And my website is askezra.info, and then I'm on all social media platforms as either ask underscore Ezra underscore or House of Algos.
Nice. Thank you so much, Ezra. And yes, let's definitely keep in touch. We got projects. Both of us have projects galore that we must celebrate, and,
Absolutely.
and we got to heal. Like Carrie Fisher said, take your broken heart, make it into art. Everybody can please donate to the GoFundMe. I did a month in the hospital. Just got out. We were going to do this earlier, but then you know.
Hmm.
But now I'm healing, and who else to help me heal but Sir Ezra Algos?
I'm happy to. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be included in the process.
I'm honored that you're on the show. Everybody can check me out at Nicholas Tanek um, on Twitter, on Instagram, at Friends Kinky, Your Kinky Friends. Buy my books. Specifically, Your Kinky Friends is a book that I wrote that the cover was made by Miss Melissa. She wrote one of the forwards, and she wrote the back as well. And this is a picture that she took of all the sex stuff that was on her bed. It's a great book that deals with grieving. It deals with me grieving the loss of Lynn, and this other woman, Miss Melissa, was essential in helping me get this book and the two other books, the artwork, the editing, everything. So rest in peace, Miss Melissa. And thank you, Sir Algos, for everything. And kinky people out there, please remember you are not alone. You are definitely not alone. We are here for you. And with that being said, remember the cardinal rule, everybody. Be cool, be kind, keep an open mind. Take care.